Connie Willis, the podcast. Taking you into new ways of thinking, even providing answers to questions you've often pondered. Connie Willis, the podcast. This is a Connie Willis exclusive. What you're about to hear has never been heard anywhere else. This is Connie Willis, the podcast.
Connie here. Don't forget to find me at conniewillis.com. Any questions that you have, any shows that you want to be a part of, any great Blue Rocker specials that are happening with people's courses and classes out there. There's always like a Blue Rocker special over at conniewillis.com. Make sure you're on my email list so you can hear the things that are coming up, what's happening, any updates like that, where it's all happening. conniewillis.com. As you know, we have been talking with Robert Treat and everything that's been happening to him. His surgery is coming up. He's done so many shows now and Q&A and did his best to answer everybody's. And those of you that still have more, hey, go to his blog. Go to his blog. He'll talk with you. He'll converse with you. And he's a really good writer. And I think you're going to enjoy it. robtreat.com. That's where you can learn about his updates as well as talk to him and ask the questions you want. That's the best way to do it. You also heard him on Coast on Christmas Day night, those of you that are Coast insiders. And if you want to hear what he did on Blue Rock Talk, you can go to my conniewillis.com and you'll see that you can actually watch that 4-hour session. So you'll see him in person. And when he takes off his glasses and tells you some of the secrets there that he's confessed out. robtreat.com, robtreat.com. Rob, how are you feeling today?
Oh, a little sluggish today, a little feverish, but generally I'm okay.
Well, so far we've done a lot of interviews. You've talked a lot. You've told a lot of things, and thank you for that. I just ask, can you hang in here for a while? Let me pull in some of my other friends that I trust and admire their work to be able to talk with you and ask you things that I haven't asked that they can go into deeper. Here's one of those people. Are you ready to go and meet them? And I think you're going to be asking him questions too, and the other people I bring in.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and very excited to meet somebody else who's had experiences. Sorry, the dogs are.
They're all excited too. I love it. Which one is that? Is that Lila?
That's Lila and Harley.
Okay, all right, okay. Oh, sorry. Wow, man, that's like a freaking Bigfoot voice going on over there. Oh my gosh, that's like Bigfoot out in the woods. All right, so I'm going to introduce you to someone I call a friend. He's out from the UK. He's a twin. You usually hear from Philip and Ronnie Kinsella. It's going to be Philip. Ronnie's not feeling too well. We'll pass on our love to him too. But we have all the way from the UK, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Philip Kinsella. Yay! Hey there, Philip. How are you?
Hello, Connie. I'm very well. Thank you very much, although I've been a little bit under the weather, but it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. I'm very honored.
If, Philip, you can just tell a little bit about yourself, and you can ask Robert some questions. And again, I know Robert's going to ask you some too, of what you want to learn from him.
Yes, well, I'm Philip, Rob, and I had what they call an abduction back in the winter of 1989. And our last sighting of a magnificent UFOs was on the 9th of April 2016 at 11:15 p.m. at night. It was because primarily of the abduction, the only one that I recall clearly. There were two stages to the abduction. One was physical, the other part was non-physical. And I've spent a lot of time and work researching theoretically certain models into the abduction hypothesis. And this is what led me into a greater or wider understanding of the phenomena that we're still trying to get our heads around. So it's really nice to meet you, Rob, and to connect with you.
Oh, nice meeting you too.
And I have to say here, I'm so sorry that you're going to have this surgery. With regards to how you're feeling. I mean, how do you feel about that yourself personally?
Oh, I'm scared to death. It's not something I ever thought I'd have to face alone, and When I imagined the last days of my life, I didn't picture it in Texas. Um, Something you may not be aware of me is I grew up in the UK, and,
Oh,
and that's really where I really consider Scotland my home, and that's kind of where I wanted to spend my remaining days was in Scotland.
You can.
wow.
You still can. You still can. The surgery is going to
Yeah.
be good. It's going to be good.
Yeah. And the other thing, Rob, is I want to say here that, I truly understand. So with regards to the way that you are, what you're going through, has this been to some degree an effect of what you have been through with regards to the cabal and, of course, the UFO subject that you were very involved in? Has this in some way affected your health in this way, would you say?
Um, Not directly.
Hmm. Right.
It's just that I ended up with a medical condition that was misdiagnosed and mistreated, and it was the mistreatment that actually caused the dangerous physical condition.
I see. Yeah, but obviously, with what you've been through, there it would have some kind of psychological repercussions on some level. I want to ask you a question, Rob, and it's with regards to the Greys, and I know people do them to death, and you get people telling you what they are about and where they come from, and I know that there are two aspects to it, two parts to the phenomena, most definitely in terms of like how they present themselves. But one of the questions I want to ask you, Rob, is why is it that we can't seem to get our hands on them? I mean, I know that you have the military that have covered cases very quickly, clean up operations. But what is your thoughts on that? Because they seem to come in and out of our reality very quickly, rather like Sasquatch or the Dogman.
Yeah, and I think it's just their level of advancement. Us capturing grays or capturing their technology would be like a bunch of chimpanzees coming from Africa trying to carjack us.
Yeah. So I want to say, so do you feel then with regards to the Greys, I mean, I know that there are certain factions of them. Most people say that they are biological and some people say they're AI technology. What's your thoughts surrounding the Greys themselves before I need to ask a major question of you about them?
My experiences with the grays were mostly as a child,
Mhm.
so my interactions were mostly good memories, all except for the first abduction, which was terrifying, and I screamed most of the time. Um, but after I got over the initial shock of being taken by them and just started accepting my situation and the fear subsiding, um, they're they're definitely organic. They're biological entities.
Mhm.
Um, their technology is so above ours that it seems to me, at least through my childish recollections, that their technology is in itself organic,
Mhm.
at least in its behavior.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah, I
it's
kind of
almost
get
like
that.
it's almost like it's grown, and they interact with their technology almost in an organic way.
Yeah, yeah,
So
and I think in interconnecting with us in an organic way, that's certainly an area that's interested me on a theoretical level with regards to consciousness, the soul, whatever you want to call that. And so do you feel that that the Greys are benevolent in nature?
I think one faction of the Greys is benevolent, and I think another faction uh, is not benevolent, not necessarily evil, but maybe evil to our ideology.
Understood. Yeah, and with regards to me, when I had my abduction, I was 20 years of age, and it's the one that I do recall very clearly. And there were, and I have to say here, of course, dealing with the phenomena as it was back then, I was taken on board what they call a ship, and there were three reptilians, and there was also a grey, and also another grey at the end of it. I'm not going to go into detail because it's long-winded, but one of the things that I found most disturbing was that the whole experience for me was traumatic. And of course, the way that they were able to take me through the wall, not necessarily the walls of the house, but also through the glass doors. That's something that really fascinated me, as though there was somehow a separating real part of me and bringing myself into their energy, their vibrational energy system. So, what's your thoughts on that with regards to the abduction, how they actually do it? I mean, are we looking at some kind of Star Trek technology?
I think that they've mastered energy and gravity in a way that's. I don't think that humans have an understanding of gravity.
Mm.
We see it as a force, like an independent force, and my experiences on board their ships, it seems more like gravity's a byproduct, not a force in and of itself. And
What do you mean by that when you do say that? Because are you saying that they use it as a tool?
I think that they produce gravity through some means of heat-generated electricity. It's like it's not a static electricity because I know what that feels like. It's not a kinetic electricity because that would be fatal, at least in our understanding of kinetic electricity.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and I kind of asked them once, how all that worked, and they said it's a form of energy derived from heat. And
Yeah.
so later when I encountered them, traveling through the sun, I mean, all that kind of like gels together. But I think that their molecular technology, the way they construct their metals, like it is, you may have encountered like a bulkhead can be solid looking, like you can't see through it, and it will turn opaque where you can like see through the floor, see through the bulkhead, see through the wall. And I don't know if you noticed, like when the door will close, like when you pass transit through a passageway through a doorway, and the door closes, and you look back, there's no seam where the door was.
Yes, and that's fascinating. And of course, you're talking about the energy because to begin with, at the first part of the experience, there was this buildup of a kind of like electrical activity. And, so I do understand that to a degree, Rob, about, this in terms of energy, because there is this influx of energy that obviously occurs. And you're absolutely right, because I've often thought myself that they must appear to be biological in nature and not AI as a mechanism. And I know there's been a lot of arguments within the UFO community about people saying, well, they're this or they're that. But the way I understood them, the way when they interacted with me rather, was the fact that I was dealing with some kind of organism. Now, the reptilians themselves, I mean, back in the day, people didn't speak about them. You didn't, because people never seemed to make the connection within ufology with reptilians. But I mean, you can't change an experience. What's your thoughts on those?
The reptilians, I believe that they're like a cousin to the Greys.
Oh, I was going to ask what connection they had. Okay.
And it's almost like, I don't know, like a family feud. I know that the what I call the good Greys or the Primarchs, don't really like the reptilians.
Informant. Hear Connie Willis on Coast to Coast AM.
And we are back. It's Connie Willis of the podcast. We've got Philip Kinsella here asking questions with Robert Treat, who you've gotten to know well. You can find Robert at robtreat.com. Also, Philip Kinsella. Philip, can you tell everybody where they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, we have a website, www.thekinsellatwins.com, and Facebook, or the outlets that's available. Yeah.
Okay, so when we left, he was about to tell you about the reptilians and
Yes.
who likes them and who doesn't, and how that works.
Yeah, so I never encountered the reptilians in association with the Greys that I was in contact with. I did encounter the reptilians in other environments among humans. And
Yeah. So, also, Rob, the other thing that's fascinated me with regards to this subject matter, we're not just looking at the UFO subject here, or alien life forms, organic, or whichever way people see them, but the bigger question of the soul, consciousness, the afterlife, going beyond that. So, I know there's a lot of arguments about people saying what they believe in a god or whatever, but primarily with regards to the Greys and the system, that whether or not they're good or bad that they come from, do you believe that they're interdimensional or from another physical planet or hyperdimension? What's your thoughts on that?
the way it was explained to me, as I understood it, was that while there are other dimensions, other realities, other spectrums of existence, they're all happening simultaneously within the same space. So it's very hard to explain. We think of like another dimension as like, like we're in a box and there's a box next to us and that's a dimension and there's another box and, everything is separated by barriers. And while everything is separate, it's also simultaneous.
Yes, and I think also, and I've got to bring this into the fray here because people have tended to segregate the UFO phenomenon into little boxes, and we're talking about boxes here, is that with regards to parallel lives as well, you hear about these things, especially with regards to past lives or everything's happening in the moment, in the now. And I think because we're in a physical universe and in linear time, that beyond our level, our reality perhaps doesn't exist. But it's interesting, the greys that that you know about, those that are the nefarious sort and not the benevolent ones. I mean, what I need to ask a question here because it's really bugged me for a long time because I'm thinking, well, what is going on with regards to these abductions and what is the overall plan with regards to this big agenda that we're hearing about? I mean, we're looking at the subject and studying it and trying to formulate our own conclusions, our hypotheses, and that's all we have at the moment, which is a blank page, because trying to put the pieces together is nigh impossible. But what's your thoughts about this? Why is there so much secrecy that's been, put into this?
Philip Kinsella, along with Rob Treat and myself, will be right back.
Informant. What you just heard has never been heard anywhere else. This is Connie Willis, the podcast. Informant. Learn more about Connie, her guests, and be sure to join her private membership shows, Blue Rock Talk and Connie After Dark, at ConnieWillis.com. Whistleblower.